These Baci di Dama, or lady's kisses, are a perfect example of an Italian cookie. They're hazelnut biscuits sandwiched with chocolate in the middle, and they're the perfect bite with a coffee, espresso, or just on their own. Let me show you how to make them. Into a food processor, add 100 grams or 3/4 cups of hazelnuts that have been blanched and the skin has been removed. To this, I'm going to add half of my flour mixture, so you'll need 100 grams in total, 3/4 cups, but I'm just going to add about half to help the hazelnuts not turn into butter when we process them. You'll want to pulse this until the hazelnuts are a fine meal, but it's okay if you have a couple little bits of larger hazelnuts. It's kind of like a surprise when you bite into the cookie. In the old days, when food processors weren't really readily available, they would use one of those big grinders to get a really fine grind on the hazelnut. My nonna actually used to use one of these for chestnuts, and she'd make a bread out of chestnut flour. It was amazing. One of those recipes lost for the ages. The smell of the hazelnuts is so intoxicating. You can see it's mostly fine. There's a few tiny little pieces of hazelnut, and there we have our lovely hazelnut meal ready to mix. If your hazelnuts have skins on them, gently roast them in the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes and then pop them into a plastic bag or on a kitchen towel and give them a good rub so that all of those skins come off. It's okay if you have a few little bits, but having all of that skin will change the color of the cookie. You could also just use almond flour if you don't want to go through the trouble of grinding the hazelnuts. It will change the flavor a little bit, but they're still delicious. Add your hazelnut meal and the flour to the bowl. Then add in the rest of the flour, and I'm using tipo 00, but you can use whatever you have. And 100 grams, half a cup of sugar. Now give that a mix. You just want it mostly mixed together before we add in the butter. Oh, it smells so good. Now add in 100 grams, half a cup, or 1 stick of cold butter that's been cubed up. You could also grate and freeze your butter, and that really helps it to incorporate nicely into the flour mix. It's really important to use very cold butter for this recipe because it will help the cookies to really have that crumbly texture when you bite into it. This is essentially a shortcut pastry. And I'm using salted butter in this recipe, but if you were to use unsalted, add in a pinch of salt. It really helps balance those flavors. And I'm going to use my fingers to start mixing this together, but if you prefer to use 2 knives or a pastry cutter, you can do that as well. I'm just going to toss so all the butter is coated and then start rubbing it together. You want to keep mixing until it comes into a dough. And sometimes I find tipping it out on your work surface makes it a little easier to work with. You could also do this entire process in the food processor since you've already got it out for the hazelnuts. See, it's really coming together nicely now. Make sure you're picking up all those bits. I'm patting it down flat into a nice rectangular square because it will chill quicker, and it will also help me roll out tiny little balls much easier because I can just cut them up. The dough now needs to chill for at least an hour or overnight to get those perfect little baci balls. Once your dough has chilled, cut it into small pieces. I'm going to weigh mine out so that they're 6 grams each, but as long as they're fairly even, then they'll be all right. I like to make mine absolutely the same size. They might be cut a little bit too small, so just use as much as you need. And then start rolling it into a perfect little ball. You might have to just give it a little squish together. Once they're a perfect little ball, place them on your baking sheet. I've lined mine with parchment. While you're forming your balls, preheat your oven to 160 degrees Celsius or 320 degrees Fahrenheit and into the oven. These will need to bake for 15 to 18 minutes or until they just start to get golden. We don't want too much color on these. Let them cool for a few minutes on the tray before moving them to a cooling rack. Let's make the chocolate filling. Chop 100 grams of a good quality dark chocolate. If you're using chopped chocolate, you'll need about half a cup, but if you're using chocolate chips, you'll need 2/3 a cup to get the same amount. I like to chop mine pretty finely so that it melts really nicely and it doesn't have any lumps or scald. Place your chocolate into a heat-proof bowl. I'm using a glass bowl and using the double boiler method, but you could do this in the microwave if you wish. To double boil, place your heat-proof bowl on top of a pan that's gently simmering, making sure the water doesn't touch the bowl. You may need to adjust your heat up and down so that it doesn't come to a full boil. Mine is on medium to medium-low. If you want to do this in the microwave, pop it in for 30-second increments, giving it a stir in between each blast of heat. It's important to give your chocolate a stir every now and again so that nothing burns to the bottom of the bowl. Once your chocolate is about 90% of the way there and you've just got a few little lumps left, take it off the heat and let the residual heat do the remainder of the work. Once my chocolate is completely melted, I'm going to let it cool to room temperature so that it's not so runny and doesn't leak out of the cookies. While the chocolate's cooling, I like to create a bit of an assembly line. So I like to match up my cookies to make sure they're about the same size, and then I just lay them out with the round sides down. They should all match pretty closely, but I like to make sure they're extra perfect. You could fill these with something other than chocolate. Pistachio cream would be really nice, or a hazelnut cream, or even Nutella. But chocolate is the most traditional. You don't want to overfill them either, because when you put the top on, you don't want the chocolate pouring out the side. I had a great aunt named Damia, and I know the name isn't exactly the same, but these always make me think of her. I like to place mine on a cooling rack because the grooves kind of hold them in place and keep them level, but any level surface is great. You just want to make sure the chocolate filling is horizontal so that it can firm up and the tops don't slide off your cookies. This recipe makes about 20 to 25 cookies when they're this small, but you could double or even triple this recipe if you want to make more. These will keep for up to a week in an airtight container, or you can freeze the cookies in advance and then just stuff them when you're ready to serve. If you're looking for more tasty treats, you have to check out my desserts playlist. I love hearing from you, so please let me know what you're cooking or baking this week down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.